Hello class, my name is Gavin Ferguson, and today I'm going to try to persuade you guys that we are on our way to experiencing the sixth mass extinction on Earth in this millennia. Before I go any further, I wanted to give you guys a quote. And the quote reads, "Our planet is currently undergoing a mass extinction of species called the Anthropocene, the age of man." So in my speech today, I'm going to give you guys a synopsis of mass extinctions so far on Earth and how they're classified. I'm then going to cover threats to our marine life and terrestrial life and what this means for the future of our species going forward. So I'm going to cover the 5 mass extinctions that have happened so far. I wanted to include these just because I didn't feel like you guys were all aware of the other 4 that happened before the one that killed the dinosaurs. So the first one was the Ordovician Silurian extinction, which happened 444 million years ago. This one killed 85% of all species on Earth. The next one was the late Devonian extinction, which occurred 383 million years ago, and this one killed 75% of all species on Earth. The next one was the Permian-Triassic extinction, and this one was actually the most devastating one of all time. This one killed 96% of all marine life and 75% of all terrestrial life. So as you can see, it killed almost all the species. The next one was the Triassic-Jurassic extinction, which occurred 201 million years ago, and this one killed 80% of all land species and marine species. And the last one, and the one that you guys are probably familiar with, is actually called the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. This one happened 66 million years ago, and it killed 76% of all species on Earth, most notably the dinosaurs. So in terms of how a mass extinction is classified, it's whenever there's 75% of all species on Earth that go extinct within a matter of a few hundred to thousand to millions of years. So out of the 5 I listed, the longest one lasted 20 million years for the 75% threshold to be met. And the quickest one was the Cretaceous-Paleogene with the asteroid. That one only occurred within a couple hundred years due to the effects of the volcanoes erupting after the asteroid hit. So threats to our marine life. So the biggest threat to our marine life today is overfishing. This is evident in that our population continues to rise, and due to rising populations, there's more demand for food, and people like to go fish for food instead of going on land because it's usually a lot cheaper, and this has caused a lot of overfishing around the world. This is most evident in the Mediterranean Sea, where 90% of all species there are at risk of extinction. We also see this on the west coast of Africa, where there's a lot of fishing, where there's over 50 species of fish so far that are at risk of extinction. And then just globally, a third of the fisheries around the world are overfished, and a third of all marine species are at risk of extinction, and this is all due to overfishing. So 2 examples of animals that have gone extinct due to humans so far are the Caribbean monk seal and the Yangtze River dolphin. So another threat to marine life is pollution, and this is seen specifically in what's called the dead zone of the Gulf of Mexico. So what the dead zone is a big it's an 8,000 square mile area in the Gulf of Mexico where there's huge algae blooms that have caused the oxygen to pretty much dissipate from the water. This is caused from fertilizer going down the Mississippi and reaching the Gulf of Mexico. And since fertilizers are nitrogen rich, the algae like to feed off that. And when they feed off that, they also eat all the oxygen in the water. And this leaves water that is pretty much inhabitable to any fish or marine species. So we have an 8,000 square mile zone of water in the Gulf of Mexico where there's basically no marine life. And this is very detrimental to the fishing communities, especially the small communities that rely on the fish, like just to get by. And then the next one is just rising seawater temperatures due to global warming. Seawater temperatures have only risen like 0.1 to 0.2 degrees. But our model suggests that the temperatures are going to continue to rise. And even just a 0.1 degree difference matters because, well, that's actually just an average globally, but in areas where there's where it's coastal, we see a 1 to 2 degree temperature rise. And the reason this is so bad is because the coral reefs that live there, the coral, they are very susceptible to temperature change and to the degree of sunlight that reaches them. So due to the added sunlight and heat that they get, it's what's called as coral bleaching. These corals become bleached and they die. And when they die, it makes all of the animals that live there, they have to leave because there's no food. And what people don't understand is corals are actually living creatures, and they provide nutrients for smaller fish and smaller animals that the bigger fish use to eat. So when these coral reefs die, it really is detrimental to the biodiversity around those coastal areas. And then just another fact about the coral bleaching is that coral bleaching is increasing at 4% every year, and currently there's nothing to suggest that that rate is going to decrease. So threats to our marine life. So the biggest threat to threats to terrestrial life, The biggest threat to terrestrial life is habitat loss and deforestation. We see this in the Amazon and Indonesia for palm oil and just for timber, where they're cutting down hectares of forest and they're not replacing it. So one of the facts that I noticed was 85% of wetlands that were here in the 1700s are currently gone, and 15 million acres of forest are lost every year. And then another fun fact is 68%, or the forest area today is only 68% of what it was the pre-industrial era, so we can see just how dramatic of effect we've had. We've pretty much cut down 30% of the world's forests. So extinction by the numbers, there's been about 700 vertebrates that have gone extinct since the 1500s, all due to human actions. And this is perhaps the biggest point of my whole speech. And this is because when I bring up extinction rates, people like to say that extinction is natural and it happens, through the course of time. But what they don't understand is that the current extinction rates today are tens of hundreds of times higher than the average extinction rates of the last 10 million years. So we can see it's an astronomical rate that if it continues, that we will reach the threshold of 75% extinction in 250 to 550 years. So if we don't take action to stop these extinction rates or slow them down, then we will for sure experience a mass extinction in the next millennia. So in conclusion, I covered the history and classification of mass extinctions. I then covered how severely threatened our marine life and terrestrial life are, and how we're headed towards another mass extinction if we don't take action. And I hope I've convinced you all how vulnerable life is on Earth and how we should take action to ensure that no other species goes extinct by the hands of humans again. Thank you and have a great day.